So, last week we were talking about healthy relationships. And within the word family, we got through fun, attention, and memories. And so today we're going to pick up with the I, which is inspire. And that is to say that in healthy relationships, whether it's within our family or within our parish, in healthy relationships, we verbally inspire. In 1 Thessalonians 5, Paul wrote, "God didn't set us up for an angry rejection, but for salvation by our Master, Jesus Christ. He died for us, a death that triggered life. Whether we're awake with the living or asleep with the dead, we are alive in Him. So, speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so y'all will be together in this. No one left out, no one left behind. I know you're already doing it, just keep on doing it." Sometimes I have to love using passages from the Message, the translation of the Bible, which is called the Message, because it can be fairly colloquial. So what he says is, build up hope so y'all be together. I just love it. Anyway, this is the same thing as what we were talking about last week when we were talking about building memories, strengthening memories, remembering memories. We want to do this, we want to inspire so that people feel that they are very much a part of the relationship. It is amazing how many people have never been inspired in anything, and so they don't feel that they are part of a group or a family. It's not the easiest thing to do. And if you've never been encouraged in your life, it can be the hardest thing to begin as an adult. Unfortunately, people do grow up where they were never encouraged in anything, inspired to be more than they could. It's unfortunate that people grow up and what they hear is, "Oh, you'll never do well in math. I never did well in math." So what if I didn't do well in math? That doesn't mean my child won't do well in math. So what if you, a woman, didn't do well in math? It doesn't mean that that woman won't do well in math, etc., etc. In Matthew 12:35, Jesus said, "A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him." People are dying for inspiration. They're dying for encouragement. And so, one of the antidotes to that is to be liberal with praise. Now, that doesn't mean that when somebody has completely screwed up an assignment, a project, their role within something, it doesn't mean you go, "You did a great job," knowing full well that the other side of your brain is saying, "No, you didn't, because I'm cleaning up the pieces." But it does mean liberal in praise where praise is due, and second of all, it means liberal in praise when you can find the place where praise can be given. On Christmas Eve, I thought I was going to strangle the children's choir at the 5 o'clock service. As I said earlier, I don't know what I was thinking. Singing 4 pieces of music on Christmas Eve, the biggest night of the year, okay? And so they were driving Leanne crazy, they were driving Michelle Racine crazy, they were driving me crazy all during the service. At the end of the service, when we got down into the robing room, I looked I told them all to stop. I looked every one of them in the eye and I said, I am really disappointed with your behavior tonight. I said, there was way too much talking in church. Way too much playing around. I said, on the other hand, you sang really well. You can be liberal with praise at the same time that you can offer correction, because the truth of the matter is, correction can be an inspiration. It can inspire people to do better the next time. All of this means that we have to be careful and we have to weigh our words in a relationship. If you make fun of your child dancing, you could potentially end up with an adult who won't dance in public. Words can cause pain. In Proverbs, the writer said, thoughtless words can wound as deeply as any sword, but wisely spoken words can heal. So again, we go back to some of the same stuff that we were talking about last week. Send letters, send emails to inspire. And not just to the person who sits across from you in the aisle, across the aisle from you in church. Send an email to your spouse. Leave a note at your spouse's place at the breakfast table, telling them how much you appreciate something. But it's not just the adults who need it, our children need it. Do you have any idea how much your children, your grandchildren love to get mail? Absolutely love to get mail. The only thing is, just don't make it be the one that came in and said occupant. Send your grandchildren a note. There's going to be a day when your grandchildren aren't going to understand what that thing is that comes with the little piece of colored paper up in the right-hand corner. So you may as well get started sending it on by email.
The school is actually doing this year these things called lollygrams.
Mm-hmm.
So you pay $1 and you get a little slip of paper and you can write a note to your child. And I extended it, so like it's more like my sister and my parents and whatever, my in-laws and stuff are all sending them to the kids. So
Mm-hmm.
that during the day, when they don't normally see us,
Right.
they're getting a note from us saying, hey, we are having a good day, you know, to my favorite hockey player, to my favorite music comedian, you
Yeah.
know, whatever, like saying something nice about them during the day when they don't normally get to see us, which I think is awesome, and it's handwritten, and it's,
Cool.
you know,
Cool.
right up that alley.
Yeah. The other thing we need to do, remember to do, is to encourage our young people in front of others. Many times what we say publicly is an encouragement. For example, have you ever been introduced to somebody and they say, oh, this is my son Johnny, he's shy. And what does Johnny do as soon as the word shy comes out? Right behind the back of whoever just said he's shy. Is he shy? Johnny can probably yap with the best of them. But as soon as you put that descriptor on Johnny, Johnny's going to act it out. There is a woman. Her name was Cheryl Pruitt. She's from Mississippi. She became Miss America in 1980. And she told the story that when she was about 4 years old, she used to hang around her father's small country grocery store. And almost every day, the milkman would come into the store and greet her by saying, how's my little Miss America? At first she giggled, but eventually became very comfortable with it. She even liked it a little bit. Soon, the milkman's greeting became her childhood fantasy, and then a teenage dream. Along the way, as a preteen, she was in an automobile accident, which left her face scarred and left her in a body cast and a wheelchair, all of which she was able to overcome. And finally, becoming Miss America became her goal, and as I said, in 1980, she was crowned as Miss America. When she accepted the crown, she said that she wanted to give credit to the milkman. Yes, the milkman did it. What we say, especially to our children, matters. But not just our children in terms of our biological children, our children in terms of all of our children here at Christ Church. What we say matters. So if your first reaction on a Sunday morning is to tell the little scallion to shut up, and I'm not saying there aren't Sunday mornings when we don't have reason to want to do that. If that's your first reaction, ask yourself, is that inspiring? How can I ask this child to be quiet in a way that inspires as opposed to a way that cuts down? Paul wrote in 1 Thessalonians, again in the 5th chapter, speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope, so you all will be together in this. No one left out. No one left behind. I'm sorry I had to read that, but that's the way the Message translated it. I know you're doing this, said Paul. Just keep doing it. Inspire people with encouragement. Next, love. Healthy relations, people in healthy relationships love without condition. Some kids, however, see their parents' love as conditional, or their grandparents' love as conditional. I.e., my parents love me when, fill in the blank, do good things, get good grades, score a goal, hit a home run. That's because, unfortunately, in that child's mind, love is expressed when those things happen. And love isn't expressed at other times in the child's life. Conversely, even in all those scenarios, I would suggest to you that the parents' or the grandparents' love is undoubtedly unconditional, but it's communicated in a very conditional way, a very contractual way. Conditional, contractual love basically says, you fill your end of the agreement and I'll reward you with love. We all know people who have grown up in families like that. Maybe one or two of you have. That's because contractual love is much easier than unconditional love. You may not realize this, but contractual love gives folks power, meaning fellow parishioners or parents or grandparents. Contractual love basically says, I can withhold love to get you to do what I want you to do. It's the kind of love where a teenager wants very much to go off to whatever college, anywhere, wants to be able to apply and see whether or not he or she can get in. And basically is told, no, you're applying to, one college is named, that's where you're going to go. That happened to my youngest stepson. He was really smart, though. He said, fine, I'm going in the Coast Guard. And he did. But his mother made it clear that Ball State was the only place that he could go. That's contractual love. Not that he could go and try to get a scholarship, get all the grants and amass as much money as possible, which he could have done because his grades were excellent. Nope, this is what you're going to do. When we operate with contractual love, whether that's within our families or within our parish, what happens is that the recipient, be it children, our significant other, our spouse, our fellow parishioner, they all become performers. Performers are people pleasers. And people pleasers give up their identity, their morality, and their values to others in order to please them. So, how do you communicate love? You. Is it unconditional? Because contractual love is not the model Jesus left us. In John's Gospel, Jesus said, "Let me give you a new command. Love one another. In the same way I loved you, you love one another. This is how everyone will recognize that you are my disciples, when they see the love you have for each other." The character of God says, "I love you." That is not a contract. That is as unconditional as it gets. It is also covenantal love. In his covenant with the Israelites, God said, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Covenant love means that God loves us. Period. That is all. We, like the Israelites, may cause him to be discouraged and disheartened, but his love never weakens, never changes. In a healthy relationship, we love without condition. How? Mainly, we love with words and with actions. And that's what we're going to be talking about over these next 2 weeks, is what types of words and actions convey that kind of love. We can start with the simple. I love you. I need you. Now, it might seem a little weird to walk up to a parishioner on a Sunday morning and say, I love you. I'm not sure Bill Banks wants to walk up to Janet and say, I love you. He might, but everybody around the two of them is going to be thinking, what am I missing? On the other hand, I need you will work equally well. And sometimes I love you is exactly what needs to be said. I need you, I love you convey the fact that you belong. Because we don't want the ones that we love to be looking for love in all the wrong places. And when we don't convey love, that's exactly what happens. Whether we're adults or young people, we start looking for love in all the wrong places, just as the song says. And we have to love with actions. Bill may not want to walk up to Janet and say, I love you, That if he's sitting near her at the passing of the peace, he might put his arm on her shoulder and say, "Peace of the Lord be with you," looking her right in the eye. How many times have you ever passed the peace and it's sort of like this? "Peace of the Lord be always with you." Doesn't really convey too much, does it? Years ago, back in St. Louis, this was shortly after Ben and I had moved back from California, and we were worshiping at at the largest parish in the diocese. Very formal. Acolytes wear white gloves. Everybody stands like this. Nobody's ever like this. Nobody ever celebrates like I do with my legs moving. Anyway, we got to the passing of the peace. This was almost 20 years after the 79 prayer book had been introduced. And they had an interim rector, and the interim stood up and he said, "The peace of the Lord be always with you." And everybody said, "And also with you." And everybody stood up, and Ben and I found two people right behind us, and we said, "Peace of the Lord be with you." And there were two people in front of us, and they were sitting in their pew like this, and yours truly leaned down and said, "Peace of the Lord be with you." We don't do that. We love with words, but we also love with actions. Okay? And we need to really think about both of those when we want to convey love. And then the last part of the word family is yield. Healthy folks in healthy relationships yield to God. Yield, meaning surrender, relinquish, submit, give up to God. In Deuteronomy, the writer said, "Israel, remember this, the Lord, and the Lord alone is our God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Never forget these commands that I am giving you today. Teach them to your children. Repeat them when you are at home and when you are away, when you are resting and when you are working. Tie them on your arms and wear them on your foreheads as a reminder. Write them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates." Parents and grandparents, the job of spiritual input is yours. At the dinner table, in the car, when you put the kids to bed, when they get up, talk about God. Talk about Jesus. Our job here at Christ Church is to reinforce what you've already done. The challenge in all of that is to yield yourself to God. To start the day with Him, to end the day with Him. In the 24th chapter of the book of Joshua, it's written that Joshua said, "So fear the Lord and serve Him wholeheartedly. Put away forever idols your ancestors worshipped when they lived beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt. Serve the Lord alone. If you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Would you prefer gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates? Or will it be gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live?" "But," said Joshua, "as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord." It's a choice. But then, if you think about it, yielding to something or someone is a choice. Yielding, you don't yield to something when you've been dragged kicking and screaming. You don't surrender to something when you've been dragged kicking and screaming. You surrender to God, you yield to God when you choose. And that's a big decision. A very big decision for you and your family, be it your biological family or your Christ Church family. I want to share a story. It's an old story about a traveling merchant. That gives you an idea of how old it is. Traveling merchant came into a town and he was curious about some construction that he saw. So he approached one man and asked what he was doing. The man said, "I'm just laying bricks." He went to another man and he asked the same question. The other man said, "I'm building a cathedral. Won't it be beautiful when it's finished?" Same job, but two very different perspectives. When we understand the higher purpose of what we are doing, we are more satisfied and happier. Our higher purpose as Christians is, of course, following the Lord. And our higher purpose is to build cathedrals that will be magnificent when they're finished. Cathedrals in our biological families and in our parish family. So, we have some time today before I have to go deal with the band. We're going to move into some practical suggestions on how to build a cathedral in our lives with the people that we love and with whom we relate. And that building of a cathedral within the lives of the people that we love is going to be grounded in the blessing. Now, when I refer to the blessing, I'm not just referring to what Ben and I do at the end of the service, although that is symbolic of what I'm talking about. I'm going to take us back into parts of the Old Testament in particular, but also the New Testament, where we look at the words and the actions that provide an indelible picture of affirmation in someone's mind and memory. That's what a blessing is. A blessing is nothing more than words and actions that are intended to provide an indelible picture of affirmation in a person's mind or memory. That's all we're doing at the end of the service. It's no hocus pocus, it's just words and actions, creating a picture. Think about it. As human beings, what do we count first? Aches, pains, troubles, messes, in the midst of which we may have many blessings. But when you get up in the morning and your legs are aching, your knees are creaking, you're not necessarily counting your blessing first, right? So Hoffer may have been onto something. To bless is to follow the example of God and his people. In Genesis 1, they wrote, "So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." In his image, i.e., that was seen as a blessing. In 2 Samuel 7, it was said to David, "And now may it please you to," said by David, "And now may it please you to bless the house of your servant, so that it may continue forever before you. For you have spoken, and when you grant a blessing to your servant, O sovereign Lord, it is an eternal blessing. In Mark's gospel, he wrote, when Jesus saw what was happening, he was angry with his disciples. He said to them, let the children come to me. Don't stop them. For the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like these children. I tell you the truth, anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter it. Then he took the children in his arms and placed his hands on their heads and blessed them. How many times in the Bible, Old and New Testament, do you think that the word bless or its various other forms appear? Just take a wild guess. I like the way you couch your guess. Hundreds. That's cheating. Good. Keep going. 1,900 are a bit high. 659 times. Bear in mind, there are 67 books in the Bible. That means that you could argue that every book of the Bible has at least 10 references to blessing, to being blessed, to being blessed, all coming out of the same word. Blessing is of major importance. I didn't look it up. I may be wrong. It may be that money is the other word that'll beat it out, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. In Judaism, Sabbath blessings are important. I don't know how many of you know this, but in Judaism, when they sit down for the Sabbath meal on Friday night, the father blesses everybody in the family, one by one by one. They bless the bread, the wine, and everybody in the family. And it's not like we tend to do, oh, bless, oh Lord, Bob, Sam, Sarah, Chris, fill in the rest of the names, each one individually. That's because a blessing conveys identity, meaning, love, and acceptance. In Exodus, the commandment says, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You can work 6 days and do everything you need to do, but on the seventh day, that's the Sabbath to God. Don't do any work. Not you, not your son, not your wife, not your maid, not the foreign guest that's visiting your town. For in 6 days God made heaven, earth, and sea, and everything in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Sabbath, and he set it apart as a holy day. Blessing throughout the Old Testament, and especially throughout the Torah, blessing is of major importance. Remember Esau and Jacob? Do you remember the details of the story? You remember that Isaac called his oldest son and he said, look, I want you to go out and I want you to kill some game, bring it in here and make me a big stew. I am not going to be here for a lot longer. And I want you to prepare me a great meal so I can give you your blessing. This, of course, would be the blessing of the firstborn child. In the meantime, Isaac's wife, having heard this, got Jacob, his twin, and said, okay, now your dad is about to bless your brother. So if you want this blessing, this is what you need to do. You go and you get a couple of goats and you bring them back to me and I'll cook a stew. And then you can take it to your father, he'll eat it, and then he will bless you. Jacob, being no dummy, said, Mom, there's a little problem. Esau's hairy and I'm smooth-skinned. What are we going to do? Mom said, I've got it solved. Not to worry. We're going to cover you with animal skin. So he did what she told him to do. And she cooked up a wonderful meal, the kind his father loved tremendously. She took Esau's clothes, put them on Jacob, and then she took goat skins and covered his hands and the back of his neck. She handed the meal to Jacob, and he took it to his father. Isaac was very blind, almost 100% blind. And Isaac said, "Which son are you?" And Jacob said, "Esau. I'm your firstborn. I did what you told me. Sit up now, and I'm going to give you some of my game so you can give me your blessing." "How'd you get that done so fast?" said Isaac. Jacob, "Because your God made it possible." "Well, come close. Let me touch you," said Isaac. Jacob did. Isaac touched him in all the right places. And he said, "Well, your voice sounds like Jacob, but you feel like Esau." And so he ate. And then one more time, Isaac said, "Are you sure you're Esau?" And Jacob said, "Yes." And so Isaac reached out and said, "Come close, son, and kiss me." Well, he could smell Esau's clothes, and once again he could feel the hair, and he blessed him. "May God give you of heaven's dew and earth's bounty of grain and wine. May peoples serve you and honor you. You will be the master of your brothers, and your mother's sons will honor you. Those who curse you will be cursed. Those who bless you will be blessed." And, of course, right after Isaac conveyed that blessing to Jacob, guess who came home? And as we heard a couple of weeks ago, he went in, and Isaac said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Esau. I'm your firstborn. I did what you told me to do." And Isaac trembled and said, "Then who just hunted game and fed me? Because I blessed him, and he is blessed for good." Esau broke into sobs and said, "Can't you also bless me?" And Isaac said, "Your brother came in here and he falsely took your blessing." Esau said, "Not for nothing was he named Jacob, the heel, the scoundrel. Twice now he's tricked me. First he took my birthright, now he's taken my blessing. Don't you have anything?" Isaac said, "I made him your master, and the master of all your brothers, your servants, and I lavished grain and wine on him. I've given it all away. Don't you even have one blessing for me?" And Isaac said to him, "You will live far from earth's bounty, remote from heaven's dew. You'll live by your sword, hand to mouth, and you'll serve your brother. When you can't take it anymore, you'll break loose and run free." Esau seethed with anger against Jacob, and he said, "The time for mourning my father's death is close, and then I will kill my brother." This is why a lot of times we don't want to bless people that we're in a relationship with. Because to convey the words and actions that tell someone else that they are acceptable, they're loved, that they are prized by the very God to whom we yield, might mean that it's the wrong person. So we would rather, as human beings, we'd rather withhold blessings than to give them out. As parents, at times, we would rather withhold a blessing because we're afraid our child will screw up tomorrow and we will be mad at them, rather than bless them today. We may not realize that part of it goes back to the story of Isaac, Esau, and Jacob. But as human beings, we are hesitant to do just what Isaac did even though Isaac found out within minutes he had been duped. Now, I'm going to have to leave in just a couple of minutes, so we're going to get into, in the next 2 weeks, the 5 basic elements of blessing. They are meaningful touch, words of blessing, expressing high value. I forgot to put it on the handout, but you'll have it next week. Picturing a special future and an active commitment to fulfill the blessing. Now, before I let you go, I just want to say one thing. Where do folks find blessing today? Where does the average Jane or Joe find blessing today?
In church.
Okay, that's very good, Dixie. I forgot to say, think big.
At the end of the service.
Okay, at the end of a service. These are all good Christian Episcopal answers. Get out of church. Where do people find blessing?
Hearing from my children.
Hearing from your children, okay? Taverns, bars, TD Garden, Fenway Park, Gillette Stadium. They all offer people an intangible and an important thing. That is, people feel blessed when they leave. Now, you may look at me and say, you have really started smoking something weird. But that's your assignment for the next week. As a matter of fact, you don't have to wait for the next week. 6:30 tonight. Turn on your TV if you haven't put it on already. And I want you to look at Levi's Stadium. I want you to look at all those people packed in there. I want you to look as both teams come out on the field. I want you to look at the coin toss. And I want you to just look at that and ask yourself, do they feel blessed? Because I'm betting you that by the end of the first quarter, you won't be thinking that I'm totally nuts, just half nuts. Because it doesn't matter who's winning, the people in that stadium are feeling a blessing. What I want to challenge us over the next couple of weeks to think about is how much more that blessing can actually be. All right. Anyway, take care. See you all next week.